But you commented at the beginning of our show about decertifying a trauma program. And I'm going to bet that no extra executive MBA or CPE or even studying osteopathic medicine prepared you for that moment. Is that accurate?
That's pretty accurate, yeah.
Hello and welcome to the Fire Chief Podcast, the only podcast dedicated to the Chief Medical Officer. I'm your host, Lee Scheinbart, and this podcast brings you the most crucial conversations in healthcare and physician leadership today. The heat is on, as we say here in Florida. Hurricane season has officially begun, and we are preparing for a very busy season, and healthcare is heating up too, everywhere, all at once. Today, we're kicking off a series of conversations about some very critical issues in healthcare right now, particularly the kind that chief medical officers need to get on their radar. Today, we're going to hear about what is happening in Delaware and Chester counties along the southwest edge of Philadelphia. This is the location of the Crozer Health System, a four-hospital system that operated continuously for over 130 years and in recent decades provided a tremendous amount of care for low-income residents before its summary closure just about 1 month ago. The closure of Crozer Health is a long and twisted tale of private equity, real estate investment trusts, lease arrangements, and greed wiping out public health and safety for many, many citizens. Plain and simple. It happened here, where I broadcast from as well, with a local hospital closure previously owned by Steward Health, about 1 week before the shutdown outside of Philly. Both hospital groups being victimized by the same company, Medical Property Trust. As promised, this podcast is about physician leadership, especially in times of crisis. And if you don't think that a hospital closure brings with it tremendous problems and requires you to focus on your physician leadership game, well, perhaps this isn't the show for you. Our special guest today is Dr. Marcin Jankowski. I first met Dr. Jankowski a while ago through our connection to the American Association for Physician Leadership, and he is basically at ground zero of the upheaval in Southwest Pennsylvania. Dr. Jankowski was born in Poland and came to the United States at the age of 10 without knowing a word of English. He grew up in Bucks County on the other side of Philadelphia and attended Penn State for his undergraduate studies. He went on to earn his medical degree at PCOM, the Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine, and also trained there in general surgery before completing a trauma surgical critical care fellowship at nearby Christianic Care in Newark, Delaware. Dr. Jankowski holds an executive healthcare MBA from St. Joseph's University in Philadelphia and earned his certified physician executive certification from AAPL. From 2011 to 2016, Dr. Jankowski served as the Chief of Trauma Medical Director at Crozer Chester Medical Center and later at Hahnemann University Hospital from 2016 to 2019. And both of those hospitals are now permanently closed. He has since returned to Christianic Care, where he accomplished his fellowship, and now he serves in the Department of Surgery as Vice Chair, Surgical Quality, and Patient Safety and Performance Improvement. Marcin, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Lee. Really pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So how have you been lately?
Pretty good. Obviously the unfortunate news, like you said, Lee, the last month, learning about the final closure of Crozer Chester Medical Center, that entire health system, and the loss of care in Delaware County, and just seeing my former colleagues, deal with that closure has brought a lot of memories, a lot of past feelings that I personally experienced when I had the unfortunate, responsibility of de-designating a level 1 trauma center at Hahnemann University Hospital. So, it's been tough. I've been speaking to a lot of my former colleagues, and it's tough. It's tough. Almost 3,000 jobs lost overnight.
I get it, and I'm going to get further into this with you as this show evolves. So look, Why don't you give us a lay of the land as it affects you at Christiana right now? So, what is happening in real time? How is that impacting the care and the work that you need to provide at your facility?
Yeah, so over the last few weeks, it's been almost a month since the final closure, and I mean, obviously, we've been having a lot of conversations on how do we prepare to treat that population of patients, those communities that now have to go outside of Delaware County and seek care. So we have three different campuses: one in Newark, Delaware, which is about 40 minutes down 95, and closer hospital is Wilmington, a little bit north of us, so a little closer to Crozer. So we have certainly felt the impact at Wilmington from a trauma perspective, just purely from an ED flow perspective, and certainly at Christiana as well. Additionally, the burn center, the long-standing burn center at Crozer, obviously is no longer there. That was our transfer facility. That is where we transferred all of our burn patients. So we've had a great relationship with the leadership there, and that no longer is the case. So we've been looking for other institutions and how do we ensure that those patients are properly treated at our institution initially, and ultimately how do we get those patients to get the ultimate care that they need. So it's been we felt the impact very quickly.
And are you having special meetings with regularity about some of those operational challenges, or is it somewhat on the fly right now as things pop up?
Yeah, I think it's really on the fly. We won't know until we unfortunately know what the true impact is. And again, those patients are still kind of in shock and in awe, and they're still looking for ways to get the best care. And they have options, obviously, based on locations and what is their nearest facility. So we're certainly learning on the fly, and we're making changes, and we're instituting the necessary, making sure that the necessary resources are available to treat those patients.
Yeah, and that is a similar pattern that we've experienced here in our county. So, from where I broadcast, there's a hospital about 5 miles south of me, another hospital 3 miles north, and another one a little farther west. But the Rockledge Regional Medical Center that closed, that was formerly owned by Stewart, has affected all of the hospitals in the mid to northern part of the county, and EMS has their hands full because they cannot route in that direction, and they didn't suddenly get 8 new rigs with 20 new staff to manage that redirect. And as you know, in your role as a trauma surgeon, seconds and minutes mean everything when somebody is acutely injured, and to have to go to the average person driving another 3, 5, 7, 8 miles doesn't sound like much, but it is tremendously important when you're trying to receive emergency care. So I hear you and I understand you. I want to ask you a little bit about your current leadership role and the responsibility that you play under normal circumstances. What is it that you're doing with Christiana right now?
Sure. So by title, I currently have the privilege of serving as the vice chair of surgical quality and patient safety and performance improvement for the Department of Surgery at Christiana Care. We're a three main campus health system that includes obviously Newark and Delaware. That is our tertiary care center. That is where I'm primarily physically there. And then we have Wilmington, and then we have Union in Northern Maryland. So my role within the department, I have the opportunity to chair many of our committees within the department. My role obviously is to ensure that we're doing everything we can to optimize the way we do things, to provide the best care that we can. So through credentialing, I also have the privilege of chairing our patient safety indicator work, which includes between 40 and 50 folks from all different campuses, really looking to optimize our care and prevent our patients developing any sort of complications while they go through our system. But beyond that, I do have the opportunity to really work with the campus chiefs at our different campuses, senior leadership, quality, safety, from nursing to physician to APC leads, and really looking at our processes, our daily workflows, and how we can optimize our care, how we can provide the best quality care, optimal, efficient care to our patients and our communities. So that's one of my roles. The other role is I do chair the event review committee. So I do chair a small committee that is made up of surgeons, nursing, APC, risk, legal, and we look at all of our complications. We review all of our surgical complications. We review all of our mortalities, upgrades to the ICU, all of the things that no one wants to talk about. But we look at those, we review those, we discuss those, and then we work through those to find opportunities for improvement, and then ultimately finding initiatives and strategies to improve those.
Yeah, and for those who don't understand what we're talking about, for me, the analogy is when we have a hurricane hit Brevard County, and after 3 to 5, 7 days, we have an after-action report. What did we do right? What did we do wrong? Where do we need to improve? And it's the same thing when you're doing these types of deep dives into medical cases. What did we do right? What could we improve upon? And these after action reports, these conferences, are critically important for improvement in safety, right?
Absolutely. And like you said, sentinel events, root cause analyses. We look at all phases of the care that we provide, from pre-hospital, pre-operative to intraoperative, and then post-operative. So our goal is to make sure that our patients go through our health system as efficiently but as safely as possible.
Yep. So let's get inside your leadership journey a little bit. So you've had several distinct roles in leadership, as we've mentioned before, and now, and you've earned your CPE with AAPL, and I think your wife did recently as well. Is that right?
We
Yeah.
did.
So as you think about these different, as TMD, trauma medical director, and your role in surgery right now, where are you going with it? What was your goal? You have an executive MBA, you have a CPE, and you and I have talked about this a long time ago. Where are you? Where do you think you're headed? What are you looking toward?
That's a great question. Obviously, when I look back at my quote unquote leadership journey, it really started with as a resident, as a fellow, teaching and mentoring medical students. Really just trying to share what I had, which was at that time not much, but I had that experience, and I wanted to impact those around me. And it really continued. I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to lead a trauma program, I would say 3.5 years after finishing my fellowship, which is unheard of. Steep learning curve, I would say. No way, quote unquote, ready for that position. But I was lucky to have folks around me who were much more experienced than I was, who had that long-standing experience and that knowledge to help me. But what I did have was I had the work ethic, I had the vision, I had the passion in bringing folks together to do really one single thing, and that is to serve our patients the best way possible. And I've continued that, and that has always kind of been the thing that I've been chasing is that opportunity. Being an immigrant coming here at the age of 10, you really realize what opportunity you have, and I would say I have taken advantage of every possible opportunity that I've been given. Some were earned, some were by luck, but between those, I really have been lucky to be able to do that. To do that so early in my career has really given me early knowledge of what leadership is, what it's about, and it's a constant learning. It's a lifelong journey, which I'm currently still on, obviously, and will be probably for the rest of my life. But really, it's to make an impact. It always has been to make an impact, to move the needle, to leave a mark. that's beyond titles, beyond credentials. It's to influence. Initially, obviously, that's why we all go into medicine, is to help patients in our clinical care through trauma and intensive care that I've been privileged enough to do for 13 and a half years. But it's really to, how can I make an impact, in what way, and finding those opportunities. And that's really what it's about, is just looking for those opportunities, preparing for those opportunities. So, as I look at my credentials, they're just a bunch of letters, but they really represent the tools that I've been able to gain throughout my career, between the DO and the FACS and the CPHQ and the CPE and the MBA. They're all just tools. They're all just tools to put in your back pocket, to gain that perspective, to gain that knowledge, broad perspective and broad knowledge, and to bring that. And you need that. You absolutely need that if you want to do things at a large scale. And I feel like I have that. I have that energy, for whatever reason, to do that. I love bringing people together to accomplish goals and improve care. That's what gets me up in the morning. It really does. And transitioning from clinical to mostly administrative was not an easy transition. I can tell you that. I spoke to a lot of folks. That was my identity for more than a decade. I was a trauma surgeon. That's all I was. And now I still am, but I'm more than that.
Yeah.
So it's finding ways to put yourself in a position where you can really contribute, and that's what I've been privileged, lucky, and able to do.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing. A lot of that is really deep wisdom, and I'm going to unpack it a little bit. I think it is a requirement of leadership to be forever curious and a lifelong learner. And you framed it in a way that I haven't really heard before, that all of the letters after your name, with the exception of your DO, because that's special, the rest are a series of tools and learned experiences that help you grow along your leadership trajectory. And maybe you don't yet have your destination, or you're not ready to share it, but it's about that journey, and always learning and always being curious and always paying it forward and always looking to make a difference. That is part of our DNA, and it's our values. And those are things that carry us when things get particularly tough. And you commented about that moment. And by the way, you will never stop being a surgeon. You could be a trauma surgeon. You can be a TMD. You'll never stop being a physician. That identity is embedded. And I was asked over the weekend if I missed patient care, and I still do every day. But my life has moved in a direction that I have a different focus, but it is absolutely part of who I am. And that's all there is to say about that. But you commented at the beginning of our show about decertifying a trauma program. And I'm going to bet that no extra executive MBA or CPE or even studying osteopathic medicine prepared you for that moment. Is that accurate?
That's pretty accurate. Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think the folks have gone through at the beginning of the month over at Crozer, which was the big level 1 trauma center in that region? What do you think they were going through? You went through it. Talk to us about all of that.
Yeah, I mean, looking back, and Hahnemann closed in 2019, and I was there for 2.5 years. It was an absolute incredible experience to be able to lead a trauma program in the heart of Philadelphia, Center City. It's as good as it gets. Long-standing tradition. I mean, we're talking 170 plus years of tradition of teaching and medicine. One of the first trauma centers in the state to be verified by the state, and just a lot of history. And to have that privilege was absolutely incredible. And from even during my interview, I think there were already some rumblings about ownership and what will things mean in the next few years. So I always I went in with that, knowing that there was a potential of a financial collapse, and never talked about closure, but certainly about changing ownership and things like that. But so it was an absolute remarkable experience. But yeah, and again, it's, looking back, you really don't believe it until it happens. I mean, my experience was, and again, being at Hahnemann, again, all that longstanding tradition, no one truly believed it. And I can tell you, and folks asked, how did you not see this coming? We saw it coming. We just didn't believe it. No one believed that a hospital with that sort of tradition, caring for patients in the heart of Philadelphia, would ever close, and until it did. And I would say I really didn't process it till months after, where I landed at Christiana. I was lucky enough to have the privilege to come to Christiana, and it really didn't hit me until later. I mean, recognizing the stability of Christiana, recognizing the quality of Christiana care, really looking back, wow, we were missing a lot of things, and but the hardest part is how personal it was. And we often forget how personal this is for folks. And I really didn't come to that realization until later, and probably most recently, as all of the talks, all of the news about Crozer of the last year or so, closing, is how personal it was. And it was still personal for me. I spent 6.5 years there. Those were the first years of my career. That is where I learned trauma care. That is where I learned ICU care. Right. So that was the toughest part, is how personal it really is. And you think about it and you say, well, why is it so personal? Well, that is where you spend a lot of your time, more time than you probably spend at home or anywhere else. And the people that you spend it with, right, are there. And you form those relationships, you form those connections. And they're personal, they're deep, they're personal, they're because you're all going through it. And especially as the process went on and it was getting closer and closer, you could feel the tension, you could feel the anger, you could feel the sadness as it was coming at the time when I was at Hahnemann, and also most certainly when Crozer closed just recently. It's a very personal thing, and it's not only just about ourselves; it's about our patients, our communities, and that was the most. I mean, I would say that was the hardest thing, is where will these patients seek care? Yes, there are other hospitals, there are other clinics, there are other, right, up the road or a few miles away. But like you said, Crozer, unfortunately, is a violent city. There's a lot of penetrating trauma there still. And our ETAs, our arrival times were minutes, were 1 minute, 2 minute, 5 minute. Rarely was it anything over 10 or 15 minutes. And, seeing that need, it counts, obviously, in trauma, in labor and delivery, it matters, it counts. And it's heartbreaking for those patients to seek care elsewhere, because it's not as easy as folks think to just get in a car and drive 5-10 minutes down 95 or so it was very personal. And I would say the differences at the time that I was at Hahnemann, I had a specific job, I had a specific role, I had a lot of responsibility to making sure that we were providing safe care to our trauma patients, and also recognizing that when we were not able to provide that safe care to our trauma patients, that was the time to call the state and say, we unfortunately have to de-designate and not call ourselves a trauma center any longer. So I worked with the state, and it at that time was very procedural, because I had a lot of things I needed to do that I felt responsible for, to the institution, to the state, to our patients, making sure that they were transferred to other facilities. So it was very procedural at the time of the Hahnemann closure. Crozer, I have not been in Crozer since 2017, yet I've continued to stay in touch with most leaders there, including the former CMO, burn unit center, trauma center, leaders, trauma medical directors, and unit directors, hundreds of nurses that I've known for years who have been there for their entire careers. And although I wasn't there and I haven't been there, it felt as personal as it gets. It felt so personal, and it felt so. It just felt absolutely awful.
Yeah, thank you for sharing all of that as well. And I'm imagining if somebody were to have closed my center and I couldn't see my patients receiving their chemotherapy, I think I would have felt everything you have just described, a sadness, a loss, a very personal feeling. This is what I do. This is who I am. This is how I function. And all of those relationships and all of the good, bad, and the in between that occurs when you're taking care of very, very vulnerable people at some of their worst moments in their lives. So I feel what you're talking about, and a lot of what you're describing now, for better or for worse, you can be that counselor, that mentor for the folks at Crozer that you remain in contact with. Because look, how many people have had to do what you did at Hahnemann? Not that many, thank God, but you did it, and you can provide that perspective, and your leadership journey has continued. And like you said, you have all these additional tools and perspectives about how to help people through it. And I would say when I left practice, I went through my own grief over it, and I think you were hinting at that a little bit as you stepped away from daily, surgical care. But the flip side is this is like something is taken from you, and it's equally grief filled, and you go through all the denial. The denial is not a river in Egypt. It is real, it is strong, and it will stop you from seeing things clearly. We hear it coming, we see it coming, but we're in denial. And I'm sure folks over at Crozier have experienced that. And then you go through that anger, and then the depression and the sadness, and eventually you get to a level of acceptance, but it can stay with you and resurface just like you're describing. You can feel what you went through at Hahnemann, what's happening over the last, month or so. And I know from the colleagues I talked to at the hospital I was referring to, the pain and anguish of spending 25 years as an infectious disease doctor there, suddenly having, you know, no ward by which to round on, and taking care of COVID patients there. And all of a sudden that's just gone. What your identity takes a big hit. So again, I thank you for sharing that. And I want to advance the line of questioning, right? So now you continue to grow into your leadership roles, and you're building some experience in your toolbox. How do you, what kind of leader do you want to be over the next 2 to 3 or 4 years as you reflect on what we're talking about and think about? So not necessarily your destination, but has this reformulated how you want to lead the current contemporary events in your community?
Absolutely. I mean, I think what this reinforced for me, I think, is the focus on people. We often focus on patients and what we have to do to provide that care to our patients, and what it takes, so the resources, the personnel, all those things. And absolutely, that is always and has always been our number one goal. But I think recognizing others around us who do the same, who are here for the same reason, in all the areas throughout a hospital, I think is really the key. We can't do it ourselves, especially in this day and age. I mean, healthcare is absolutely being flipped upside down, and we have to work beyond our silos, beyond our profession. We have to surround ourselves with folks who we have never spoken to before, who have completely different backgrounds, experiences, and we have to work across silos, and that's all new, that's all chaotic, that's all. But I think that's where I have felt that I've been fairly successful, and also very deeply happy. We often learn most from those tough ones, of what it means to work with folks that you work with. But really looking for opportunity where I can, again, like I said, make an impact. I think my again, as I learned through my CPE journey and my capstone, one of the first questions was, who are you? What are you about? What are your virtues? Right. I've gone through several leadership programs, and CPE hit it right on the nail. And it took a while. It took a while. And so I think it's learning about yourself, what you're passionate about, what you're authentic about, what you care about, and using that to help others, to serve others, to serve your institution, to serve those around you, and to serve the patients and the communities that you have the privilege of serving.
That's beautiful. And I have to ask, when you did your executive MBA, was there a moment or a session where someone asked you about your core values?
No,
No. So it
no.
is my suspicion that is rare in MBA programming, and maybe that's part of the larger problem we have in our business universe. We don't ask business leaders to take an oath. We don't ask them to hold a license of professionalism. They're free to run a business, run it into the ground if you have to, right? And so there's a big difference between physician leadership and business leadership, and it's you nailed it about the CPE that nailed it for you about your core values and who you are, and that's where it starts. So, I hear a lot of things in what you're describing, and I had a recent chief medical officer on the show who is going to transition what we would call a retirement, although it really feels better when we say transition, to becoming a programmatic mentor in his hospital and health system for younger CMOs. And what he made a comment about that has stuck with me, and you've just added to it, is to be an effective CMO, you have to love other doctors and you have to remember that you love your patients. If you hold those two things in your heart, it is so much better and easier to do the things that are required. The love of your patient that you had in practice should stay with you. If you don't have it, okay, you may be able to get away with it. But if you don't love the doctors you're working with, or love doctoring, or love the house of medicine, or the practice, however you want to frame it, you're going to struggle. You might be able to survive on just one of those, but if you don't have both of those, that's a problem. What you added, and I don't know if you heard yourself say it, is loving the people that you work with. And that maybe that's the third leg of this stool, is loving your ancillary team, your transporters, your phlebotomists, your surgical techs, your scrubs. I don't care. I mean, your schedule it.
Yep.
If you don't have an
Absolutely.
affection for the people that you're working with who are equally impacted when there's upheaval, then you're missing out on some beauty in return, right? That what you get back out of all this. So, would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as my scope has gotten progressively larger in terms of my ability to make an impact. You realize that you one can't do it alone. You can't do it through protocols and rules and authority. Some perhaps, but really to be effective as a leader on a large scale, I think like we've always heard, leading through influence.
Hmm.
And how do you influence folks without being authoritative? And it's through relationships, it's through connections, it's through being authentic and just being human. And I think as I think back to a lot of the I've done books, I've done programs, and all the and I've learned in each of those. But what I've realized is the next thing that comes along, leadership quote unquote book or whatever program it may be, you're always looking for that magic trick to become that great leader. And with every single one of those, whether it's a book or a program, instead of looking outside, they all have you turn inside and think about, well, who are you first? And that's what the CPE really did for me. It was probably the most influential. I would call it transformative, because it really forced me to look within of who I was. What do I stand for? Who am I leading? Should I be leading? And yeah, the answer is yes. But why? And explaining that why, knowing that why, I think is important. And that's how you impact change. That's how you drive change. That's how you move the needle, is through influence. And influence doesn't come without true, authentic relationships and connections.
And I'll also bet that your MBA and others do not start with self-leadership and looking in the mirror, correct? Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. So there's nothing magical about leadership teaching. But if anybody out there is evaluating a program or a book, if it doesn't start with leading yourself before you lead others, leading teams and leading an organization, if it doesn't have that, walk away, or don't look at it as a leadership development. It has some other benefit, but it's not leadership development. You have to have those elements. And one of my research partners has shown this in his PhD and the additional work we've done. When you take physicians through leadership development, and you start with the self, and you look in the mirror, and you talk about your values and your virtues and your nature, and you go through that experience, what you find, and it's measurable, it's observable, it's empiric, that you become a better communicator, that you become a better listener, that you become a better an effective partner, whether it's at home with your spouse or your kids or at the workplace. And there's something really meaningful about the process of leadership development that will make you a better person, which makes you a better leader, and then it sort of feeds itself as you continue the journey. So look, let's take a step back. We only have a little bit of time left. You're watching this unfold. You saw it in Center City at Hahnemann. You're now at Christiana. You're on the outside. Christiana is probably going to acquire a couple of the outpatient facilities to help ultimately take care of people. It's unclear if anybody will be able to resume hospital operations, but is this going to be what is your perspective about how the community will be shaped? And you talked about silos and reaching over and trying to help people. I mean, how do you see this unfolding in the next couple of years for the community? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think oftentimes we have that ideal solution in mind, and we often chase that, and sometimes that's just not feasible. It's just not attainable. And clearly, it was an absolute awful to absolutely awful to see that health system close, and the impact that we will continue to see probably over the next few months, if not years, to Delaware County and beyond. But what I've learned is to not necessarily chase the ideal goal, but to find the best alternate solution. And if I were to pick a best alternate solution, that would be for Christiana Care to have the privilege of serving that community. To be honest with you, and we always say that we serve with love and excellence, like you said. Being passionate about what you do, being passionate about your patients, your communities, and serving with excellence, providing excellent care, high quality, safe, efficient care. And if anyone, it should be us, because we I believe do it right, and we've done it right for a long time. And for me, it actually feels great in a way, that Christiana Care will be, as of I think yesterday or 2 days ago, will have the opportunity and the privilege to oversee the operations at 5 locations that were previously owned by Crozer. So I have no doubt that our system will bring in that same passion for excellence in care to those communities. So I feel very good about that. And in speaking to my former colleagues at Crozer, nurses, leaders, directors, they were all hoping that Christiana Care would be that safety net to, unfortunately, we weren't able to assume all of those operations, but to hear this week that we've been able to secure those and be able to provide our care the way we do it in Delaware County feels pretty good.
I think, and maybe you're lucky because you came from Poland and you had to learn a new language, a new culture, a new way of being part of your community. Physicians on average who aren't first generation, or the sort of the traditional path. We don't think about change. Medicine is going to be medicine for the rest of our life, and healthcare is going to be healthcare. And I got to tell you, man, we're going from Cat 1 to Cat 5 tomorrow. It is not what you think, and it will be changing. And what I impart to the folks that I work with, get your change game on. Learn how to manage through it, manage with it. You're going to experience some tough things, as you've alluded to. How does all of this sound in terms of telling people to learn how to work with change?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's constant now. It's every day. There's something. AI is
Yeah.
looming. Not even looming. It's already being implemented and driving everything that we're looking to do. And so just being open to different approaches, different ideas. And again, this is where the ability to work with others is
Yeah.
crucial, I think. And also, again, it comes down to managing yourself first, managing yourself in change and making sure that you are where you need to be, and then managing others and influencing others in a positive way, and looking at change as opportunity and not necessarily as a end to something, because it's constant.
That's right. That's right. And you've alluded to so many ways of having a healthy and pragmatic optimism and a best alternative solution. Obviously, you paid attention to your fundamentals of negotiation class when you got your CPE. The best alternative to a negotiated agreement. You've got it, Marcin. You still got it. Any predictions on what you think doctoring and what the practice of medicine will look and feel like in about 10 years for the students that are going through all of their education and training now? What do you think it'll look like for them?
Yeah, it will be different. Just like it's different and has been different for me than when I trained. It's completely different. I'm used to seeing attending surgeons come in, operate, and leave. When I trained, that is no longer the case. That is right. So, billing, documentation, all of those things are now part of our life. I am hopeful and optimistic that we'll be able to implement AI to allow us to get back to the bedside, to allow us to get back to our patients and our colleagues and our coworkers, and it'll hopefully take off that administrative load that we've been carrying for so long as clinicians, and get us back to the patients, to the bedside. But it will be different, and I think what students are seeing now, I do still have the privilege of teaching medical students, do a lot of mentorship, my wife and I, with medical students, and that's what we tell them. It's don't expect to see what you're seeing now 5 years from now. It will be very different. So learn from others, surround yourself, step outside of your comfort zone, surround yourself with those who you perhaps don't agree with, who are smarter than you, better than you, have different backgrounds, have different, knowledge base, have different opinions, and learn from them. And that will hopefully allow you to deal with change, better and more effectively. But I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic. I think AI has incredible potential to be brought into the healthcare sector and really assist us and get us back to where our passions are. Burnout is big right now. Not only physicians, nurses, medical students, residents, and I deal with a lot of quality safety, that deals with documentation and all this. So I know it's a burden. It's an absolute burden. So something has to give, and I think that will allow us to get better. But be comfortable in change, embrace it, accept it, and use it to your advantage, because we do have the opportunity to make it what we want it to be. We do have that opportunity to make it look like what and use it to help us and to help our patients. So I look at it as an opportunity, and that's what I try to instill in our medical students.
That's great. I'm glad to hear that. I have a military buddy who the phrase he taught me, and this he shared this with me when COVID hit us really hard. He goes, Lee, embrace the suck. It's gonna suck, but you got to embrace it. And you're in the shit now, and you're going to have to learn to embrace that, because it's going to be something incredible on the other side. And he was 100% right. And he had been on several tours in the Middle East, so he knew it. And I had to learn to believe him. Now, I'm not going to use those words to the medical students unless they're listening to this show right now. But I think for our young leaders, you said some very important things: to embrace the change, to look to the other side of it. And there's a chief medical officer down in the Houston Woodlands, Texas area that I spoke with, who wrote a brilliant piece about how medicine has to move from the transactional back to the interactional. And you're describing the same thing. And one of the framings for burnout, and there are many, is that the demands outweigh the resources. And so you're constantly trying to keep up, but you don't have everything at your disposal with all these demands, like documentation and providing all these extrinsic, administrative, transactional moments of your day. And you just don't have the resources. And AI might be the way to level that. And more importantly, is bring us back into relationships with people and others, people who are smarter than us, who see the world differently, our staff, so that we're back to the core of medicine, which is about the love of the patients and taking care of each other and providing that which makes a difference for people. So it has been amazing to have you on this show, particularly on such short notice. Oh, you're quite welcome. Do you have any last words before I close it out with the audience?
No, just, I mean, one, thank you for the opportunity, Lee. It's been phenomenal. Like I said, I think surround yourself with those who are beyond you. Step outside of your comfort zone, and learn from them. Get over the imposter syndrome. That will follow you forever, probably, and that's okay. That means that you are outside of your comfort zone. That means that you are surrounded by the right people. I rarely have felt comfortable in many meetings, and that's a good sign for me when I'm surrounded by CMOs and COOs at AAPL, going through my capstone with absolutely brilliant folks. Uncomfortable, yes. Vulnerable, yes. Fantastic, yes. And I know I'm heading in the right direction. I know I'm growing. I know I'm developing. So to others who are going probably through the same things, quiet your imposter syndrome, and just that's actually a good sign. So that's one piece of advice that I got, is that if that imposter syndrome is really rearing its ugly head, you're doing the right thing. So
Yeah, I think you're right. And you stretch out of your comfort zone, and that's how you grow and learn. So listen, this again has been marvelous. So everybody, you have been listening to the Fire Chief Podcast, the only podcast dedicated to the Chief Medical Officer. If you are a CMO or looking to become one yourself, check out our new website, thefirechiefcmo.com, now the only website dedicated to the Chief Medical Officer. Feel free to connect with me through the website or on LinkedIn. Leave your comments about the show and tell us what physician leaders should be talking about and doing in healthcare today. I love talking with physician leaders, medical directors, and CMOs from all of the United States. So please connect, leave your reviews and comments, and please share this with your colleagues. And in the words of Sergeant Phil Esterhouse, let's be careful out there.